While Russian missiles test NATO's patience at the border, a massive wave of Ukrainian drones has just paralyzed the economy in the heart of Russia. I'm bringing you the hottest updates. Ukrainian attacks causing a logistical collapse in Russia, a Russian attack on Ukraine's neighbor, Poland, and Poland turning a blind eye, the Kremlin's twisted logic of diplomacy by force, and air defense for Ukraine after more Russian attacks. This is Unfiltered with Darina Tichenko. Glory to Ukraine. We'll start in just a second. That's exactly what you need to do. Subscribe, hit the bell, and give a like to this video on our UATV channel in your language. Let's go all in. In just 48 hours, a massive offensive with long-range Ukrainian drones dismantled key nodes of the commercial and energy distribution network on Russian territory. The accumulated destruction of several logistics complexes in Ryazan, Penza, Volgograd, Perm, and Tatarstan critically affected the operations of the giant Wildberries and paralyzed strategic fuel processing plants.
The 7th Wildberries warehouse is on fire. Ryazan is burning. They haven't even calculated our remaining inventory yet, how much we lost in the other warehouses. And another blow, Ryazan is burning. Dear Tatiana Bakalchu, when the hell are you going to start taking action? Please excuse my language. This doesn't make sense to anyone anymore, not even a child, and we don't even have time to get anything out. The 7th warehouse. Please forgive me.
How did this attack affect each of the targeted locations? Ryazan, the main Wildberries logistics center, was destroyed and set on fire, along with strikes on the Ryazan oil refinery. Penza, a direct attack on the Wildberries distribution center, caused massive fires and the evacuation of staff. Volgograd, destruction and a prolonged secondary fire at local logistics facilities. Perm, a precise strike on the Lukoil refinery, Perm Neftarg Syntez, destroyed the connector facilities between the key AVT-4 and AVT-5 units. Republic of Tatarstan, Zelenodolsk, and Kazan, attacks on the Wildberries logistics complex in Zelenodolsk, along with reported overflights and explosions near Kazan.
What madness! Putin, thank you very much. Vladimir Vladimirovich, what a legend! An absolute genius! Simply the best. He saved Russia.
This strategy shows a definite shift towards strangling commercial and energy distribution logistics, with air defenses being bypassed in key industrial areas. The systematic disruption of these chains creates bottlenecks and a direct financial impact on the local economy, which will be extremely difficult to repair in the short term. NATO airspace seems to have become the new testing ground for Western patience, or rather, to see just how far their ability to look the other way goes. The constant overflights of Russian missiles and drones over the skies of Poland and Romania are not simply miscalculations, GPS errors, or random electronic interference. This is a carefully calculated provocation by the Kremlin to test the reflexes and true resolve of the Allied side. Moscow launches these vectors near the borders, not by mistake, but to gauge how much provocation the Atlantic Alliance can take before lifting a finger. A firm response? What does that even mean? Nothing could be further from the truth. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, along with Warsaw's leadership, has chosen a stance of extreme caution, bordering on the art of diplomatic juggling, to avoid at all costs a hypothetical direct escalation. While this prudence aims to avoid lighting the fuse of an open conflict between NATO and Russia, the subliminal message it sends in that direction is actually quite dangerous. In the Kremlin's geopolitical logic, extreme restraint and the lack of a forceful response are not seen as diplomatic prudence, but rather as a clear sign of weakness and fear. In light of this situation, the Polish foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, proposed an idea that was just common sense: allow Polish air defense to shoot down Russian drones and missiles over western Ukraine before they cross the NATO border. This would provide significant relief to Ukraine's air defense systems, allowing them to focus their resources on protecting cities in the east and center of the country. However, the proposal has been stuck in Brussels bureaucracy, waiting for a unanimous consensus that never comes. In the end, while the Allies debate the semantics of commitment, the missiles keep challenging the boundaries of European airspace. To understand the foreign policy of dictator Putin, you don't need to read Machiavelli. All you have to do is review the code of conduct in a maximum security prison. Russian diplomacy is not governed by international law or the search for consensus, but by a pure criminal culture, where any gesture of courtesy, civilized dialogue, or attempt at refined diplomacy is immediately interpreted as a blatant sign of weakness. When Western leaders insist on the tactic of not provoking Moscow, the Kremlin sees neither prudence nor respect. They see a cornered victim who is desperately begging to be pressured even more. So, is there any real way to stop this escalation? The answer is as simple as it is forceful: by speaking to them in the only language they understand, that of brute force and the inevitability of punishment. Calls for sanity and resolutions of condemnation don't stop missiles. What does stop missiles is the systematic destruction of militarized factories, strategic airfields, and ammunition depots within Russian territory itself. Only when the cost of continuing the aggression directly threatens the survival of the Kremlin's war machine will the Russian dictatorship begin to reconsider whether its imperialist adventure is really worth it. U.S. foreign policy toward Ukraine seems to have turned into an entertaining reality show episode where traditional diplomacy has been replaced by social media and election cycles. Relations between Washington and Kyiv are no longer managed solely in the offices of the State Department, but also in interviews with hyper-conservative media figures like Tucker Carlson or Laura Loomer. While Carlson traveled to Moscow to act as a megaphone for the Kremlin's historical delusions about Rurik, for example, the Ukrainian team has had to learn to juggle information in order to get the reality from the front lines through these new gurus and ensure the message reaches Donald Trump's ear without distortion. Will all this media noise translate into real, concrete aid? That's the million-dollar question. At the end of the day, photos in Florida and grandiose statements don't stop the airstrikes. What stopped the attacks are missiles for the Patriot systems. Even though the debate in Washington keeps going in circles, real diplomacy now means convincing allies to search every last corner of the planet for available interceptors. While the complex landscape of United States politics continues to debate and decide which version of the story it wants to buy, Ukraine desperately needs these speeches to finally turn into actual, concrete military equipment and supplies before their window of opportunity finally runs out. The narrative that there are safe regions in Ukraine far from the front lines falls apart every night with the deafening sound of air raid sirens. While border cities like Kharkiv or Kherson suffer the daily and brutal pounding of artillery, cab-guided bombs, and rocket systems, the rest of the country can't breathe easy either. In areas theoretically farther from the front, like Vinnytsia, Kropivnitsky, Kyiv, and Lviv, the threat takes on an even deadlier face: Kinzhal and Zircon ballistic and hypersonic missiles. In the end, geography doesn't guarantee immunity. The Kremlin's strategy of terror serves as a daily reminder that absolutely all of Ukraine is in the line of fire. Why does Moscow diversify the geography of its attacks so much? The answer lies in a cold and macabre war calculation, the consistent exploitation of Ukraine's air defense deficit. Knowing full well that systems capable of intercepting high-speed ballistic missiles like Patriot and others are extremely scarce, and it's impossible to cover every corner of the map, the Kremlin amasses its arsenal to deliberately strike where coverage is weakest. It's a ruthless calculation in which Russia takes advantage of every gap in the defensive shield to spread panic among the population, while Ukraine is forced to make the painful decision of which cities to protect with the few interceptors it has available. That's all for today. Thank you very much for joining us on Sin Filters with Darina Chichenko. See you in the next episode. Don't miss it. Slava Ukraini. Glory to the heroes.